Go for it.
All right. Hello, Beady friends. Welcome to class today. My name is Meredith Roddy, and I am teaching on behalf of Beadalon and Artistic Wire for the Michaels Community Classroom. So welcome to everybody who is a new student, and welcome back to everybody who has taken classes with me on behalf of Beadalon for Michaels or just on behalf of Beadalon before. It's wonderful to have such a nice group here today. So a little bit about what we're going to be doing for class today. We are going to be learning how to make a beaded flower. Now, the technique that I'm going to be using today, we're actually going to be using two different techniques from a French beaded flower, kind of a genre of bead making. And this is what brought me back into beading after not really a hiatus, but more kind of the start of my journey that brought me to where I am today, being able to teach these wonderful classes. And I love French beaded flowers, and it is an amazing rabbit hole to go down. And if anybody is interested after we've gone through class today and learning a little bit more about what French beaded flowers are, the history, but probably more importantly, how all of the different resources and all the different things that you can make. Feel free to contact me through Instagram. I'm at Meredith Joy Designs, and I can point you to a bunch of different resources that you can use and learn from, just as I have in my crazy rabbit hole, like I said, of French beaded flowers making. But we're gonna take it back a couple notches, like I like to do for these Michaels Community Classroom classes, and really learn the basics and talk about the tools that we'll need, talk about some of the different techniques. And then we are going to make this cute little daisy, and we're going to attach it to a pencil. And then that originally, I thought it would be a really nice gift idea, either for Mother's Day or Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. So those are some of the things that I had in the back of my head that I wanted to use this design for gifting, because I love making things, but I also love gifting things. So just so that everybody knows, this class is being recorded. So if you have, there's something that I went over a little bit too quickly, you can always go back on the Michaels Community Classroom YouTube site in about 24 to 48 hours and rewatch and relearn. And additionally, Yvette from Beadalon is hanging out over in the chat room, and she is there to answer any questions that you have and to interrupt me if there's something that I didn't see come up in the chat. So please feel free, if you have any questions about anything, you need a little clarification on something, you can go ahead and just leave that over in the chat. She'll also be posting the instructions as I'm going along. But you can also download the instructions from the Michaels class site before they come off of the registration for that. Or I do know that they were also included in the email that you received when you registered. And additionally, over the next couple of days, I will be posting them on the Beadalon. We have a learning center on our website, beadalon.com, of course, with tons of different resources and a couple of different patterns actually for different French beaded flowers as well. So that is all of the housekeeping that I have. Let us go ahead and start talking about the materials that we are going to need for our class today. So first off, we will need 3 different gauges of artistic wire. So the first gauge that we're going to need is 18 gauge, and we actually won't need this until the very end. We are also going to need 24 gauge artistic wire. And then lastly, we'll need 26 gauge. However, my 26 gauge, I realized is being photographed right now. So I'm gonna fake it and use 24 gauge, but that's a very good takeaway message for our class today, which is oftentimes you can substitute one gauge or one or a different color or a different material in a project from what is written in the instructions. And the best advice that I always give for doing that is just try it and see if it works. We get a lot of questions, will this work? Will this work? Will this work? Well, My answer is oftentimes just try it. Let me know because it might work and it might not work. But there's only one way to find out, right? So a couple, excuse me, a couple of things about gauges. I kind of glossed over and I said all these names or these numbers and different gauges, but what does that even mean? So a gauge is an indication of the thickness of the wire. And we are using artistic wire today, which is a dead, soft copper core, our enamel colored, silver plated wire that also has a tarnish resistant coating on top of it. So gosh, lots and lots of words to talk about what this wire is, but the takeaway is that it's nice and soft and easy to work with. Now, 18 gauge is going to be thicker than 24 gauge or even the 26 gauge that we're using. And all of these different wires and all of the different gauges have their uses. And we're actually working on a class right now. I believe it is for either June or for July, that we are going to go way in depth and talk all about all of the different gauges from 12 all the way up to 28 and everything in between and what those different gauges are good for. But just know, so for today, we're going to be using 18 gauge, 24 gauge, and then we're going to pretend, but it's going to be 26 gauge is the best gauge for the wrapping. We are also going to need some seed beads, and my friends at John Bead have their wonderful seed beads at Michael's, and these are size 11 seed beads. And these are the colors that I chose for my project today, but you can use any color that you want. You don't have to have a yellow flower. You can have a red flower. You can have a blue flower. There are so many different colors of flowers in nature, and also so many different colors of seed beads. But what I have today are the golden yellow, the transparent light green, and then black. And these are all size 11s. And what I have found from doing this many, many times is size 11 really is the sweet spot for the right look, I think is the best way to say it, for the French beaded flowers. Could you do them with 8s or 6s or even 15s? Sure. But 11 is kind of the traditional size that people use for this technique. Additionally, we are going to need our nylon jaw pliers. And I never used these until I started doing French beaded flowers. This is an invaluable tool. It is a must-have for this technique, and you'll see why and how many times I just reach for it without even thinking as I'm doing this technique. And then, of course, we're going to need some nippers because we're working with wire. We need some good wire cutters, or we call these nippers. You will also need floral tape. So at least in my Michael's story, you just kind of have to go down a couple aisles and around the corner from the beading section to the floral section. But this stuff is really, really fun. And it's going to be what we use to connect our flower all together and then connect it to the pen. And then lastly, I do have on the materials list a spin and bead or a bead spinner. You can certainly use a bead spinner to string up all of your beads, but because we are not using that many beads in this project, if you don't have a bead spinner or a spin and bead or a mechanism by which to string your beads on quickly, it actually does not take that long to string them all up by hand. That's how I did it when I first got started. It's not my absolute favorite way to string up beads, especially with these little size 11s, but throw on your favorite TV program, start binge watching something good, and then before you know it, they'll be done. And I think that it is worth it for sure to be able to make such fun designs. And then I have my ruler here because a lot of what we'll be doing is measuring the bead segments as we are wrapping them around. So a good ruler is always a good thing to have in your beading toolbox. And those are the materials that we're going to need. So before class started, I did go ahead and I pre-strung my beads, because I don't think anybody wants to watch me string up feet and feet of size 11 seed beads during class. So I went ahead and I strung up about, I called for about 3 feet of the yellow seed beads, and then about 12 inches of the black seed beads, and then about, I'm looking for the measurement on the green seed beads, but I'm not seeing it right now, but when we get to that, we will get to that. So a spinning bead is a tool, and I'll show you mine, that makes it much easier to spin up the beads. So it spins like this, and then the beads climb up onto your wire. And like I said, if you don't have a spinning bead, all you need to do is just do each one individually. And it's a little meditative. We'll just leave it at that. So like I said, I pre-strung up all of my beads. So I'm just going to clear some stuff off of my workspace so it's a little less crowded here, but I definitely need my my ruler. And sometimes the long strands of wire can get a little fiddly, so generally I always work from the spool, but I usually just kind of drop my spool on the floor and then pull out the amount of wire that I need. So now I have my beads strung up, and let me show you, actually, let me just bring this into frame so you can see a little bit more of what I'm talking about. That will be a little more helpful. So you can see I've got all of these beads strung up, and I'm working from my spool of 24 gauge wire. And I actually just have this hooked over, there's a little knob on my overhead device over here, and it's the perfect size to hold that spool in place. And you can see I just have a little messy loop here at the end, so my seed beads, of course, do not fall off. And I will say that as I was stringing up my beads earlier, I did drop the wire at one point. And seed beads are now currently all over the floor of my studio, but they're just joining their friends of all of the other beads that are down there, so it's okay. All right, so again, I do this without even thinking. I am always straightening my wire, because the wire, especially the 24 gauge wire, just by nature of it being in the world and being moved around, tends to get a little bent, but you can see just by me drawing the tool over the wire, it gets nice and straight. Same, like this part did not get straightened, this part got straightened. Okay, so first step, and I also tend to do it with my fingers, and again, this is just kind of stuff that I don't even think about. All right, so now we start to get to our measurement. So I'm going to move my beads down to the end. I'm going to leave about 3 inches, and I'm going to then take about 2 inches of beads. So I'm just measuring between the 3 and the 5, that's 2 inches. And I'm going to make a loop, okay? So really simple, I'm gonna cross this over and just make a loop, okay? And you'll watch and see as I'm doing it, I'm always kind of fiddling with my, let's see if we can get this down a little bit closer for everybody. I'm always kind of fiddling with my wire. I'm always straightening it. As I go along, I'm always kind of zhuzhing everything into place. And you'll start to do that too as you go along, because it's an imperfect and imprecise technique, but you also just kind of want to make sure that everything is nice and straight and doesn't get kinked up. So after you've done your 2-inch loop, we're going to, again, move the beads down to the end or the base of that loop. And we're going to pull them up one side and just kind of move the beads out of place so that that wire comes down and locks in between 2 of those beads, and back down the back side. And then I'm going to come here and I'm just going to wrap it around the bottom. And I've made 1 petal. Okay, and again, I'm just kind of zhuzhing it around with my fingers, making sure everything is still nice and smooth. So that is 1 petal. And we're going to do that 8 more times for 9 petals. So my petals are going to be 2 inches each. So next step, I'm going to come and measure out 2 inches. And I'm not going to worry about this being perfect. There's a lot of imperfection in nature, and I don't want to get wrapped up, get it? Or what's the word that I'm looking for? Or stopped by trying to make this perfect. This is a free form fun technique. Okay, and so since I need to do this so many times, I am going to do this one a little bit faster, and then we're going to slow the next one down again. Okay, so now I have 2 petals. So we're going to measure out 2 inches, and you can see with the repetition, much like any repetition that you do in beading, it becomes very meditative. It becomes very very zen to do these steps over and over again. So once again, I've measured out those 2 beads. I have them down against the base of my now forming flower. I am going to bend that around, and let's actually watch what I'm doing, Meredith, and get that nice in here and wrapped around the petal. Again, I'm just kind of making my petal into an oval shape. I'm going to come up one side, and I like to move the beads out of place so that I can lock that wire in between the 2 beads on the top, and then come back down on the back side. And then I wrap around again. So for the French beaded flowers is a lot of different wrapping. So depending on how you want your flowers to look will depend on how many wraps you make and how the different types of wraps that you make. All right, so once again, I'm coming in here. I'm going to wrap this around. Wrap it over, come up the front, move my beads down into place. And this is why it's so important to work off of the spool, because otherwise you run the risk of running out of wire. And that is never fun. And I also always string up more beads than I even could fathom that I would need. Because I don't like running out of beads. It's not the end of the world. You just have to then add the beads either from the back of the spool, right? You need to take all the wire off the spool and then add the beads at the very, very end. Or you have to guesstimate how much extra wire that you'll need, which I never like to do. And so it's always better to have more wire, always better to have more beads, because you can always take the beads off of the wire when you're done. Although I will say that I'm not so good at taking the beads off the wire. I feel like I've already gone to all of the effort to get the beads onto the wire. Why am I going to take it off of the wire? I actually still have beads from probably 10 or 15 years ago that are that are still spooled up, ready and waiting for another project. Okay, so again, I'm just kind of using my fingers, no fancy tools, no fancy techniques. It's all about using your fingers to put the wire where you want it to go. And that's why this 26 gauge wire, I'm sorry, this 24 gauge wire is so perfect, because it's soft enough that I can use it with my fingers, or I can move it around with my fingers. If I was using, I don't know, 16 or 18 gauge wire, not only would that be too thick for these size 11 seed beads, but it would also start getting tougher on my fingers. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We've got 3 more petals to make. I also really like mixing my beads together, almost in a bead soup kind of a way, because I will show you, I have a couple of examples of different flowers that I have made over the years that I will show when we are all finished, of different variations and different ways that you can take the exact same technique and do just so many different things and achieve so many different looks with just a couple of basic twists and turns of the wire. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We've got 2 more petals. And you can see I'm not worrying about these last petals. I'm not worrying about this, the stem right here for now, because all of that comes into place and becomes important later on. So just stringing it around, coming over here, up one side, back down the back side. And I'm actually, what I would love to know as I'm kind of finishing up with these flowers is, has anybody done this before? Has anybody done any French beaded flowers, or just any beaded flowers, or using seed beads in this kind of a way, strung up on wire, to make these kinds of designs? I have used these for barrettes, for pins. I'm gonna move my camera up just a little bit. I feel like I keep knocking it. I've attached them to necklaces, but my favorite thing that I have ever done with the French beaded flowers, and I'll bring this one into camera really quickly, is I attached a bunch of them in my wedding bouquet. And so I know a lot of people keep their wedding flowers and do things with their bouquets, but I just included just a couple, and then a couple for my bridesmaids as well. So I always have them as a reminder for my wedding bouquet. So I was glad that I was able to do that. All right, let's just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. And if you wanted to do 7, if you wanted to do 8, if it doesn't really matter, I just like how 9 works. All right, so to bring this together, I have my my end here and my, let's show that a little bit better. Hold on. There we go. My end here and my end here. And before I twist these 2 ends together, I'm going to take the long end and just go over, under, through all of my petals. It's just one of those things. It brings everything together. It kind of doesn't necessarily neaten everything up. It just brings everything together. So I'm just going over and under and over and under. And I think I am back to the beginning when I am here. Yep, good enough. Okay. And so now what I want to do is twist these together. So again, nothing fancy. What I usually do is I put, let's see if I can do this. I put my 2 fingers underneath the flower and just gently pull and twist to twist that together. Nothing too fancy. And then let's see, I leave it, what is that, about 3 inches. Twist that all together. And then I'm going to snip this off. I'm also going to cut that original loop. But since I still have about 2 feet of these beads strung up, I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that I twist my end over so that I don't end up with seed beads all over the place, because that's never good. It is never good. So now I have my 9 petals and we are ready to make the middle part. Okay. And before I do that, again, just by force of habit, I'm just coming here and I'm using my thumb and my forefinger to very gently bend these petals so that they are more petal shaped. Okay. And because it's 24 gauge wire, it's easy to do to make the bends, but because it's 24 gauge wire, it will also stay like that. But this center part is not so pretty. We want it to be a pretty center part like this. And I like the way that I made this center part a little bit more 3-dimensional, but you can also do a center point that's a little flatter. So we'll see how I feel as I'm doing it. All right, so I have my black beads strung up. And one of the challenges of having all of these long wire strands is that they have a tendency to tangle up on themselves. So let's try to avoid that from happening. So I now have about 12 or so inches. Again, I always try to do a little bit extra on my 24 gauge silver artistic wire. And the technique for the center is a little different. It's more of a traditional petal for a French beaded flower rather than a wraparound loop, which is what we did for these petals. I'm just kind of throwing out some of the terms that you'll see once you start going down the road of French beaded flower making. There are a couple of different vocabulary words to learn. And again, in the beginning, I always come along and use my nylon jaw pliers to straighten that wire. And then I tend to do it with my fingers as well. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 beads and I'm going to move them away from all of the other beads. Okay, so I have my 2 beads here. I'm going to leave about an 8-inch tail. It's probably way more than I need, but again, better to be safe than sorry when working with wire. It's so inexpensive that you don't really have to worry that much about wasting an inch or 2 here and there, because it ends up making your life a lot easier to have a little bit more to hold on to and a little bit more to work with. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of move these 2 beads that we just isolated out of the way. And we're going to create a loop of about 2 or 3 inches and twist that together. So what ends up happening is you have a twist here at the bottom. You have your 2 beads hanging out here in between that loop and the top of the wire where we started. And then you have all of your beads down here that you've already strung up. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start wrapping those beads around those 2 center beads. And varying, just as a quick aside on French beaded flowers, varying the number of beads here is what is going to determine a lot of different things, but mostly petal shape and petal size. Okay. So again, this isn't quite a whole primer, a whole discourse on French beaded flowers, but I'd like to pepper in a little extra information here and there. Okay, so now what we're going to do, like I mentioned, we're going to start wrapping the beads around those 2 beads. So the way that we are going to do that is very carefully. It's very not hard. What I like to do is I bring down, I don't know, maybe about 1.5 inches, 2 inches, and I hold them in place with my thumb. And what I like to do is actually work so that my beads are on the left and I'm wrapping around, I guess that would be counterclockwise. It's one of those things that it's a lot easier to do than it is to explain, but we're going to go ahead and explain it anyway. So now what I'm doing is I'm moving enough beads into place so that they are wrapping around tightly to those two beads. So maybe one of them wants to bop out, maybe it's too many, maybe that one wants to bop in, and I'm going to kind of force the issue. But it looks like that one doesn't want to be there. So we're just going to go, and that's 2, 4, 5 beads, but I don't count on this. What I do is I go by how it looks and how it feels. So now what I'm going to do is this wire is perpendicular, right? So we're at a right angle. We're not at a 45-degree angle. That's actually for making pointed tips, but that's a different class for a different day. So we're going to take that wire here on a right angle, and I use my pointer finger to kind of hold everything in place and then rotate this around so that it's wrapped at the top. Okay, and we're going to do that a couple times so that you'll see. So now I'm going to do that very same thing. I'm going to hold the beads here, but now what I'm going to do is I'm going to twist this around to do that same step, to get that same placement of beads on the other side. Okay. So again, I've got I'm holding everything very specifically with all of my hands, and how I hold it with my hands might not be what works best for you holding it with your hands. But this is what works for me. So again, 90-degree angle here at the top, and I'm going to, with my left hand, twist this around. So I'm not actually wrapping this top wire around. I'm holding it in place and I'm twisting, because that way everything is tight and snug up to where I want it to be. Okay, so we're going to continue doing that, and we are going to do that for, let's see, I think we're going to do it for a total of 3 rows on each side. So once again, I've pulled that around. I'm going to move the beads that I don't need out of place. I'm going to hold everything with my fingers, and I'm going to twist this here. Okay. And one more time, moving my beads into place, flipping this around. So you can see all I'm doing is I'm wrapping the beads from top to bottom, bottom to top, top to bottom, bottom to top, but I'm doing it in a very specific way so that everything is very precise. So I've got 1, 2 rows on this side, 1, 2 rows on this side, and I want 3 on each side. So we're going to do that 2 more times. So I'm going to move my beads into place. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to make sure, and sometimes these wires get a little wonked out of space or out of place. So you just want to make sure that the top and the bottom wires are always in a straight line. And again, just with your fingers, nothing fancy. And if it gets a little bit out of shape, that's okay too. Flowers are imperfect creatures. And so if your flower has a little bit of variation to it, that is just fine. Okay. And so now one more time, so that we have 3 rows on either side of those first 2 beads that we started with. So move those beads out of place, twist it around. Whew, and breathe a sigh of relief. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to twist this one more time. And I am going to carefully snip it from the spool, and then always make sure that you tie a little twist at the end of your beads so that everything does not fall out. Okay, so now what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to gently cup these beads together and bring these 2 wires together underneath that cup. So just really, really gentle, and bring these 2 together and then twist them together. So there's a lot of twisting in French beaded flowers. There's a lot of, and when you're ready, you can just snip. You don't need all of this waste here. There's a lot of twisting, a lot of work with your fingers, a lot of kind of manipulating the wire around how you want it to go. And then this little guy can poke right through the center of the flower. Oh, so cute. Love it. Okay. So now we are ready to, actually, we're going to do one thing before we start with our leaves. And that is, again, we've been twisting. Now we're going to twist these two together. So I put the center in, and so now these two get twisted together. And again, I'm just using my fingers, and I found that taking my my finger, or my ring finger, or my, which finger is this? My first finger and my second finger, and just kind of holding and twisting that the top of the flower. So now everything is one piece. So we had two pieces, and now we have one piece. All right, so now we're ready to make our leaves. And I have already, once again, strung up a whole bunch of these green beads onto my 24 gauge wire. And I am going to put that on my little hook over here. And if you don't have the specific reticulating arm camera holder that I have as the perfect size hook, any hook will do. The packages of artistic wire, it's on a spool. You could even poke through this part here and put the spool just on a, a regular hook, if you had a command hook or any kind of hook or something to hang it onto in your workspace. Or you don't need a hook at all. For years, and in fact until this morning, I did not have anything on a hook. Now, one of the things about wire, and specifically one of the things about thin 24 gauge wire, is you can over twist it, and all that will happen is it will break. Wire is made of molecules, of course, and those molecules will work hard and compress, but at some point they will get so compressed together that they will break. So if you keep twisting, like if you put this in a vise and put it on, attach a motor to it somehow and twist it, what will end up happening is usually at the weakest part, it will break. So you just want to be sure, you just want to twist it enough that it's together. You don't need it any more than just a secure twist. Okay, and you can see there's even some space here in between at the top of the twists that they're together. They're not going anywhere. That's all you really need for this. You don't need it because it's all going to be covered up next time. All right, so I think we're ready to make our leaves. My goodness. Okay, so I have my my size 11 seed beads in green, and I am going to leave a 4 or 5 inch tail, and then I'm going to measure about, and I'm using my about measurements specifically, about 4 inches of seed beads here, and just using the same technique that we used for our petals way back in the beginning of class. I'm going to create a loop with those beads and twist them together. Okay, I'm going to use my fingers to flatten that out, and you can see by using, in the beginning we used 2 inches, and now we're using 4 inches, so that loop becomes much longer, right? Same technique, but just a much different look because we started with a longer loop. Okay, and same with, just as we did with the flowers, I'm going to hold or push those beads down against the end of that loop. I'm going to come up here to the top, move the beads out of place just so that it will lock in between those 2 beads there. and come back down the other side. And I think I want to move just another bead or two into place. And so because I'm just making a leaf now, I'm making flowers and flowers and flowers. We're done here. So now what we need to do is secure these two ends together by, once again, just twisting. So we're not wrapping, we're twisting. So I'm holding the wire with my right hand because I am right-handed, and I'm twisting with my left hand. And again, you don't want to over twist, you don't want to under twist, you just want to twist it enough that it's secured together. Then I can come over here and snip off the ends. And I always, even when I'm about to immediately make another leaf, I always secure the end by tying a little loop there so that my beads don't go flying all over the place. All right, so last making of thing, we're gonna again just kind of leave about 4 or 5 inches of free space. Measure out about 4 inches, and you can, if you want one leaf to be bigger than the other, you can, do this as 4.5 inches or 3.5 inches or 3 inches. Kind of play around with how you like how it looks. Another fun thing to do is to look at, maybe you have a favorite flower in your house. Try to mimic what the leaves on that flower look like. So if you have a really pretty, a really pretty African violet, or I'm trying to think off the top of my head of different kinds of flowers and I'm drawing a blank. You want to, just kind of measure the flower or eyeball or the leaf and just eyeball it and see if it's something that you would like to try to emulate. All right, so I'm just going to snip these off. I'm going to tie this in a little loop, and then I'm going to do the twisting here. So you can either twist it while it's still on the spool, or you can twist it when it's off the spool like this too. Whatever works for you. And of course, I'm going to come in here and I'm just kind of bending this with my thumb and my forefinger to turn it into a leaf shape, right? Because leaves generally on fantasy flowers or on actual real life flowers aren't generally like this. They're much more like this, especially if they're happy plants. So I'm just going to kind of come in here, give a little squeeze, give a little bend, maybe move these apart a little bit. However it ends up being that I like how it looks, will be how it ends up being. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to make sure that all of my ends are nice and flush. So if I have any ends here that are maybe for whatever reason still have a loop involved in them, or if they have like a little jagged edge here, it's always nice just to kind of tidy up your ends and your edges, and then move all of the scraps out of the way. And so now what we're going to do is we are going to attach these 3 parts onto a piece of 18 gauge wire. So real quick, since this is a new spool, just want to point out how I go about opening these spools. Working with so many beads, I take them out of the packaging. But what I generally do, if I'm only using a little bit at a time, is I keep it inside the pack. And you can see there's a little punch out right here. I'm just using some round nose pliers. You can use like a pen or even scissors. I'm actually using bent chain nose pliers. I know I said round nose pliers. You can use round nose pliers also. And then what you can do is pop out carefully, and sometimes, especially if you don't want to run the risk of marring your nails, just kind of pop this out with a pair of pliers. And then use, oops, that one is actually this way. Again, use the pliers to pull it off of. It'll usually be corralled on part of the plastic. So some intense 18 gauge wire. And then all you need to do is string this back through and then put it back into the pack, and then it dispenses. So it's just a good way to keep your wire nice and tidy and not all unwound. So this is, again, where these nice flat nose pliers or nylon jaw pliers come into play. But because this end is really, really wonky and bent out of shape, I'm just going to snip it off. I'm not even going to worry about it. And I want to, oh, I put my ruler away a little too soon. Again, a generous 6 inches of wire. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this wire and I'm going to attach my flower to this 18 gauge wire, just to give it a little something more to hold on to. And to do that, I am going to use a piece of 28 gauge wire. Okay, so this happens to be a piece of wire that already has a little loop on the end. So I'm just going to cut that off. And really all I'm doing is lashing the flower to the 18 gauge wire by wrapping it around kind of as tightly as I can. And by kind of, I mean as tightly as I can. Okay. And again, this does not need to be neat because it's all getting covered up with floral tape. Okay. So all the way up to the top. So that wire now has, or that flower has a little bit more oomph to it because it's on that 18 gauge wire. And if you want, you can use 2 pieces of 20 gauge wire. If you have 16 gauge wire, you could use 16 gauge wire for this. All I'm doing is I'm creating an opportunity for the wire to have just a little bit more oomph to it to be able to attach to that pen. Okay, so now it's time to bring my leaves in. And all I'm going to do is hold the leaf against that wire that I've already wrapped. And I'm going to wrap it around again. And here I'm actually doing that wrapping motion. I find that that is much easier to actually do the wrapping than it is to do a twist. Although if the twist technique is easier for you, then I definitely would recommend doing that. All right, so now I have my next petal here, and I'm going to attach that the same way. And bring that all the way down to the end. Okay, again, no real care, no real precision needs to be taken. So you might think, ooh, that's a little messy, Meredith. It's a little too messy for my tastes, right? Because we've got all this wire kind of all jumbled up here. But what we're going to do now is use the magical floral tape to make everything nice and neat. So this is a new package. We're going to go ahead and open it up. And for those of you who have not used floral tape in the past, it's really, I don't know why I find it fascinating and I get such a kick out of it, especially when I figure out how to get it open. I'm just going to use a tool to make my job a little bit easier here. And if you don't have floral tape, there are actually a bunch of different ways I have seen this done. You could actually wrap it with beads. So these aren't the prettiest color combinations that I've ever done before in my life, but it shows the point, which is you could use beads to wrap it. Somewhere around here, I have one. Oh, here's another one that I really like where I used beads to wrap the top right here. So this is actually an example of what I was talking about, of mixing your different bead colors. And then here, I just have it wrapped right underneath with some beads here. You could use a pipe cleaner to wrap around. It might be a little hard on your fingers, but I don't see why that wouldn't work. But the way that floral tape works is you stretch it to activate the stickiness. So you always want to make sure that you stretch it, much like your, oh, I don't know, Alonga, elasticity, your silk cord. It's one of those things that you stretch it to activate it. And then carefully come in here and twist and wrap around that wire. So now that wire that was silver all of a sudden becomes a nice green, because that is what color our flower stems generally are, right? So we're going to kind of twist this around, and I'm kind of pulling it as I'm twisting it. I can move these out of the way if I need to get a nice twist here, and then move them back. I generally will spruce up a flower afterwards. You could also use like embroidery floss to attach, but I find that the stickiness of the floral tape to at least get that first pass is a really good way of attaching your flower. Okay, so now my flower, for all intents and purposes, is pretty done for at least preliminarily. And now I can turn this into a lot of different things. But today we are going to turn it into the top of a pen. So here I just have a nice pen marker that I like, and I'm going to hold, let's see, I'm actually going to back this up just a little bit here. I'm going to hold my pen against my flower, and I'm going to note that my stem is a lot longer than I need. So I'm actually going to cut this about, I think maybe about there. So just kind of eyeballing where I want this to be on my pen. Let's see, actually, I think I want it to stick up just a little bit, but not too much. So maybe there is a good place for me to cut it. And again, I'm going to use my nippers to cut that off. And now all I need to do is to come in here, and again, with some floral tape, activate it by stretching it. And then the first thing I want to do actually is to wrap the pen with the floral tape, because what that's going to do is it's going to create a surface that is tacky enough to be able to better adhere that flower to. So now I'm going to take my flower here. Oops. And I'm always working from the spool. It's just a habit that I get into. I even do it when I'm beading. I work from the spool. So depending on the project, I find that it is easier to work from the spool than it is to not work from the spool. So now all I'm doing again is that twisting to attach the base of the flower to my pen. And I might come in here and do this a couple times just to make sure that it is a strong enough hold. And I am going to need to come in here and just kind of bend my leaves out of the way so that I can come in here and get a nice connection at the top as well. So just depending on where your petals and your leaves fall, you just want to make sure that everything is nice and tight against that pen. And then if this is a little too sticky, a little too tacky for you, what you can end up actually doing for the last and final step is take some thread or some floss, or again, some beads, and bead all the way down and around it to finish it off. But over time, this tackiness and this stickiness will ease up. But if it is a little too sticky for you in the very beginning, then definitely you can go ahead and cover it up with something else. And then I like you can either keep the flower straight up, or you can see I just kind of pinched it down just a little bit with my fingers and just kind of curled my leaves just a little bit more. So that is our project for today. Really quickly, I just want to show a couple more examples of different flowers that I have made using several different techniques. So here's one that's a little bit different. Here's one that is much, much bigger, right? I have another one that I made with a similar technique, but different colors. That seems to be tangled up right now and not wanting to come free. Let's move this one into the frame. I love it because it's this crazy rose gold color of flower. And you can see as I'm always sprucing my leaves, sometimes even if they don't need sprucing. But they can get really heavy. So that's something to consider as well as you're figuring out what your design is. So just by using some very simple techniques of wrapping wire or wrapping wire that has beads on it around and around in all different ways, you can get all of these different variations in flowers. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, things that you want to know about French beaded flowers going into the future, you can feel free to drop me a message through Beadalon or through Facebook or through Instagram. I'm at Meredith Joy Designs, and then I can send you down the crazy path. It's a wonderful path of French beaded flowers. So that is our class for today. I want to give a very big thank you to everyone for participating. Raina, if you're ready to take that forward camera, again, I am ready for it as well. But I want to definitely say I appreciate everyone joining us. This class will be posted in about 24 to 48 hours. And I think I can spotlight myself. There we go. This class will be available in about 24 to 48 hours on the Michaels site. The instructions have been posted here in the chat, but they will also be available through your email that you're registered for, but also on the Beadalon website. I will be back. Let's see. We have a class on Saturday at 2 p.m. with Sarah Ellis, and then I will be back. I think it will be me, but we will definitely have a Beadalon class that you can find on the Michaels Community Classroom site to register for next Wednesday at 2 p.m. That's when our classes are. So again, thank you so very, very much for joining me. If you do make some flowers, please be sure to post them and use the hashtag #MakeItWithMichaels. Also, make it with Beadalon, and go ahead and join the Jewelry Making with Beadalon Facebook group and post over there as well, because I love seeing everybody's creations. So I hope everyone stays safe and stays well. And until next time, happy beading.